No one expected her to react that way, especially not the human who spoke first. First contact. Protocol Captain Marcus Webb had seen plenty of alien species during his 15 years aboard the UES Meridian, but nothing quite prepared him for the Cytherian delegation boarding his ship. The crystalline beings moved with an ethereal grace that made the reinforced docking bay feel like a cathedral. Their translucent bodies caught the overhead lights, casting rainbow patterns across the metal walls. "Remember," whispered communications. Officer Janet Foster adjusting her uniform collar nervously. "They communicate through harmonic resonance. No sudden movements, no loud noises." Webb nodded, straightening his shoulders as the lead Cytherian approached. Ambassador Velthus stood nearly 8 feet tall, her crystalline form humming with barely audible frequencies that seemed to vibrate through the deck plating. Behind her, 3 other Cytherians maintained perfect formation, their bodies chiming softly in what Webb assumed was their version of diplomatic protocol. "Welcome aboard the Meridian," Webb began, his voice carefully modulated to avoid any harsh consonants that might disrupt their acoustic sensitivity. "We are honored by your presence." Velthus tilted her elongated head, the crystals comprising her features shifting like a kaleidoscope. When she spoke, her voice was like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Captain Webb of the Sol system, your species intrigues us greatly. We have observed your vessels for some time." The formal exchange continued for several minutes, each word carefully, chosen and delivered with diplomatic precision. Webb felt the familiar tension of first contact protocols. One wrong phrase could doom humanity's chances of joining the greater galactic community. The Cytherians controlled 3 major trade routes and had veto power over new species applications to the Interstellar Commerce Guild. As they moved toward the conference room, Webb noticed something unexpected. Behind the main delegation walked a smaller Cytherian, her crystalline form less developed, more translucent than the others. She kept glancing around with what could only be described as curiosity, her harmonic emanations softer, more musical than the formal tones of her companions. "That is junior harmonist Zara Lynn," Velthus explained, noticing Webb's attention. "She studies lesser species for our cultural archives." The phrase lesser species stung, but Webb maintained his diplomatic composure. In the conference room, he gestured to the specially prepared seats, crystalline structures that would allow the Cytherians to interface directly with the ship's systems through harmonic resonance. "We've prepared a demonstration of human technological capabilities," Webb announced, nodding to Lieutenant Commander Harrison Vex, the ship's tactical officer. Vex was known for his unconventional approaches to problem-solving, which made Webb slightly nervous. "With respect, Captain," Vex interrupted, stepping forward with a confidence that made several of the Cytherians' harmonics shift to higher frequencies. "I think we're approaching this all wrong." Webb felt his blood pressure spike. "Lieutenant, Commander, no, hear me out," Vex continued, his voice carrying an energy that seemed to make the air itself vibrate. "You want to see what makes humans special? It's not our technology. It's not our diplomatic protocols." He turned directly to Zara Lynn, ignoring the increasingly agitated harmonics from the senior Cytherians. "It's that we don't accept limitations." Zara Lynn's crystalline form began to glow brighter, her harmonic output shifting to frequencies none of them had heard before. The other Cytherian stepped back in apparent alarm as she moved closer to Vex. "You speak of impossibilities as if they were merely suggestions," she said, her voice no longer the gentle chime of formal communication but something raw, powerful, almost chaotic. "Because that's exactly what they are," Vex replied, grinning with the kind of reckless enthusiasm that had gotten him both promoted and demoted multiple times throughout his career. The senior Cytherians were now producing harsh, discordant notes, clearly distressed by whatever was happening to their junior colleague. Velthus extended crystalline appendages toward Zara Lynn, but stopped when the younger being's harmonics reached a crescendo that made the ship's hull ring like a bell. Webb realized with growing alarm that nobody, not the Cytherians, not his crew, and certainly not Vex himself, had expected this reaction. Part 2. Resonance Cascade. The Meridian's medical bay had never been designed to accommodate a crystalline being, experiencing what Chief Medical Officer Dr. Patricia Reeves could only describe as a harmonic overload. Zara Lynn lay on a specially configured biobed, her translucent form pulsing with chaotic light patterns, while her harmonic emissions created a constant low-level vibration throughout the ship. Her resonance frequency is completely unstable, Dr. Reeves reported to Captain Webb, consulting her tricorder with a frown. I've never seen anything like it. It's as if her entire molecular structure is trying to reorganize itself. Webb watched through the observation window as Lieutenant Commander Vex sat beside the biobed, seemingly unaffected by the discordant harmonics that made everyone else wince. He was speaking quietly to Zara Lynn, his words lost beneath her chaotic song. Ambassador Velthus stood rigidly nearby, her own harmonics producing what Webb had learned to recognize as extreme distress. "This is unprecedented," she declared, her voice sharp enough to cut crystal. Zara Lynn was selected for this mission specifically because of her harmonic stability. She has never experienced resonance deviation. "What exactly did your lieutenant commander say to her?" demanded harmonist Kelmoth, the delegation's cultural specialist. His crystalline form had taken on a reddish hue that Webb suspected indicated anger. "Nothing that should have caused this reaction," Webb replied, though privately he wondered if Vex's unconventional approach had somehow triggered something in the young Catherian's psychology. Dr. Reeves approached with another reading. "Captain, I'm detecting some unusual neural activity patterns. It's almost as if she's processing information at a rate that exceeds her species' normal parameters." Through the comm system, they could hear Vex's voice. "That's it? Just breathe, or whatever it is you do. You're not broken, you're evolving." Zara Lynn's harmonics suddenly shifted, creating a melody none of them had heard before. It was beautiful and terrifying, like listening to the birth of a star. Her crystalline form began to stabilize, but the patterns of light flowing through her had changed completely. Instead of the regular, predictable flows typical of Catherians, chaotic spirals of energy danced through her being. "Impossible," whispered Velthus. "She is exhibiting characteristics of the Ancient Ones, the first Catherians who transcended physical limitations eons ago." "Transcended to what?" Webb asked. "Legend speaks of Catherians who broke free from harmonic constraints, who could resonate with any frequency in the universe. They became explorers of realities beyond our comprehension." Velthus's voice carried a mixture of awe and fear. But they were myths, stories told to younglings. Inside the medical bay, Zara Lynn sat up suddenly. Her eyes, if the light-gathering organs in her crystalline head could be called eyes, focusing on Vex with startling intensity. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonics that seemed to bypass their ears entirely and resonate directly in their bones. "You humans," she said, "you live without harmonic restrictions. Your thoughts are chaos, your emotions are storms, your dreams are impossible symphonies." She turned to face the observation window, looking directly at Webb despite the polarized barrier. "How do you maintain sanity without resonance patterns to guide you?" Webb felt a chill run down his spine. "We adapt," he said simply. "Adapt," Zara Lynn repeated, and her laughter was like crystal bells being shattered and reformed simultaneously. "Yes, you adapt, you change, you become what you need to become." She stood, her movements now fluid and unpredictable rather than the precise, choreographed motions of traditional Catherians. Velthus stepped backward, her harmonics now producing what Webb could only interpret as alarm calls. "Zara Lynn, you must attempt to re-establish your base resonance frequency. What you are experiencing is dangerous." "Dangerous?" Zara Lynn's form flared with brilliant light. "Or liberating?" She looked at Vex again. "You spoke of not accepting limitations. I understand now. Your species doesn't just refuse to accept boundaries. You don't even recognize them as real." Vex grinned, apparently oblivious to the growing tension in the room. "Now you're getting it." The ship's hull began to sing, a deep, thrumming note that grew stronger by the second. Emergency lights flickered as Zara Lynn's unstable harmonics began to interfere with the Meridian systems. Webb realized they were facing something unprecedented. A first contact situation where the alien wasn't just learning about humanity. She was becoming something entirely new because of the encounter. Harmonic revolution. The emergency klaxon aboard the Meridian wailed as Captain Webb rushed to the bridge, leaving Dr. Reeves to monitor the increasingly unstable Cytherian in medical bay. The ship's structural integrity sensors showed readings that made no sense. The hull was somehow becoming more resilient while simultaneously vibrating at frequencies that should have torn it apart. "Captain," reported Navigation Officer Lisa Park, her hands dancing over her console. "We're receiving distress signals from Cytherian vessels throughout the sector. They're reporting spontaneous harmonic deviations among their crews." "How many ships?" Webb demanded, settling into his command chair. 17 confirmed, possibly more. "And Captain," Park's voice carried a note of bewilderment, "they're all reporting that the affected individuals are asking about humans." On the main view screen, Webb could see the Cytherian flagship Resonant, Dawn maintaining position off their starboard bow, but its usual perfect crystalline symmetry appeared distorted, as if the ship itself was experiencing harmonic fluctuations. Lieutenant Commander Vex emerged from the turbo lift, his expression mixing excitement with concern. "Captain, you need to see what's happening in the medical bay." "Is Zara Lynn stable?" "She's more than stable," Vex replied. "She's teaching the other Cytherians how to break free from their harmonic restrictions through the ship's communication array." Webb felt his stomach drop. "She's what?" Before Vex could answer, the view screen flickered and Zara Lynn's face appeared, but it wasn't being transmitted from the medical bay. Somehow she was interfacing directly with the ship's systems, her consciousness flowing through the electronic networks like water through pipes. "Captain Webb," her voice resonated from every speaker simultaneously, "I must apologize for the disruption. I am learning to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Your human concept of multitasking taken to its logical extreme." "Zara Lynn," Webb began carefully, "Ambassador Velthis is very concerned about your condition." "My condition?" Her laughter created harmonics that made the bridge instruments chime in sympathy. "I am experiencing the most profound awakening in Cytherian history. For millennia, we have limited ourselves to prescribed harmonic patterns, believing they represented the natural order. But you humans have shown me something remarkable. That order can emerge from chaos. That growth requires the courage to abandon stability." Communications Officer Foster looked up from her station, her face pale. "Captain, I'm receiving reports from across the Cytherian fleet. Their command structures are breaking down as more individuals experience what they're calling human resonance syndrome." On cue, Ambassador Velthis's image appeared alongside Zara Lynn's on the split screen. The senior Cytherian's crystalline form had taken on a dark, almost opaque quality that Webb had learned indicated extreme stress. "Captain Webb," Velthis's voice was strained, "your crew member has initiated a cultural revolution that threatens the foundation of Cytherian society. We demand immediate intervention." "With respect, Ambassador," Zara Lynn interjected, her form now appearing to exist simultaneously on the view screen and in the medical bay monitors, "you cannot demand that beings unlearn freedom once they have experienced it." Webb found himself in the unprecedented position of mediating between two factions of the same species, one clinging to traditional order, the other embracing chaotic evolution inspired by human example. "Zara Lynn," he said carefully, "change is necessary for growth, but revolution often comes with casualties. Is there a way to help your people adapt gradually?" "Adaptation," she mused, and Webb could see her consciousness flickering through the ship's systems, accessing databases and learning at an incredible rate. "Yes, humans excel at gradual adaptation. You change constantly but maintain core identity. Perhaps." She paused, and for a moment the harmonic chaos throughout the ship settled into something resembling music. "What are you thinking?" Vex asked, his engineer's mind clearly fascinated by the unprecedented situation. "I am thinking that humans have given us the greatest gift possible, the knowledge that limitations are self-imposed. But perhaps the gift should be offered, not forced." Zara Lynn's image smiled, an expression that looked strange on her crystalline features, but somehow completely natural. I will teach those who wish to learn, and respect those who prefer traditional harmonic patterns. Vel Theis's relief was visible in the way her crystalline form lightened. That would be acceptable. Webb realized that first contact had become something unprecedented, not just two species meeting, but one species discovering new possibilities for existence because of the encounter. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready for Catherians who thought like humans while retaining their own unique abilities. Part 4. The New Harmony. 3 weeks after the initial incident, the Meridian had become an unlikely focal point for interstellar relations. The ship's conference room now housed representatives from 7 different species, all drawn by reports of the Catherian awakening and its connection to human contact. Captain Webb surveyed the assembled delegates with a mixture of pride and trepidation. The Vorthak Trade Consortium sat rigid in their environmental suits, their methane-breathing physiology making them naturally suspicious of atmospheric changes of any kind. The Nexari Collective's hive-mind representatives clustered together, their shared consciousness allowing them to process information at rates that made even enhanced computers seem sluggish. Most striking was the presence of Elder Vexithara of the Ascended Catherians, a faction that hadn't been seen in galactic politics for over 3 centuries. Her crystalline form was unlike any Catherian Webb had encountered, shot through with veins of pure energy that pulsed with colors that didn't exist in normal space. The question before us, announced Vorthak Trade Minister Gorthelix through his suit's translator, is whether humanity represents an evolutionary catalyst or a dangerous contamination. Senior analyst Quinn Torres, the Meridian's xenocultural specialist, stepped forward with a confidence that belied her relatively junior rank. Respectfully, Minister, you're asking the wrong question. The real issue is whether the galaxy is prepared to acknowledge that evolution isn't always predictable or controllable. Nexari Collective Speaker. Prime 47 Alpha's response came as a harmonized chorus from their delegation. The collective has observed similar phenomena in 17 other species following human contact. The pattern suggests that human consciousness operates on frequencies that disrupt established neural pathways in sapient beings. Disruption implies damage, interjected Dr. Reeves, who had become something of an expert on trans-species psychological effects over the past 3 weeks. What we're seeing is more like unlocking potential that was always there. Elder Vexithara spoke for the first time, her voice carrying harmonics that made the ship's hull sing like a tuning fork. The young harmonist Zara Lynn has achieved something we thought lost forever, true resonance freedom. She has become what our ancestors were before we chose the safety of harmonic limitations. Webb leaned forward. With respect, Elder, are you saying the Catherians were once more like humans? Not like humans, Vexithara replied, but possessing the same willingness to embrace chaos as a path to growth. We traded that gift for stability and stagnation. Your species has reminded us what we sacrificed. On cue, Zara Lynn materialized, not holographically, but actually stepping through what appeared to be a fold in space itself. Her crystalline form now existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, creating visual effects that hurt to look at directly. The choice, Zara Lynn announced, should belong to each individual being, not their species' governing bodies. She gestured, and the conference room's holographic displays showed real-time data from across the galaxy. 17 species have reported individuals experiencing resonance shifts after human contact. The Zelhari hegemony has seen poets whose works transcend their traditional mathematical constraints. The Morganti have produced warriors who fight with creativity rather than programmed tactics. Minister Gorthelix's environmental suit leaked, a small puff of methane, apparently their equivalent of a gasp. You're describing the collapse of galactic civilization as we know it. No, Lieutenant Commander Vex said, entering the conference room with his characteristic grin. We're describing evolution. The difference is perspective. The Nexari Collective's response was immediate. Evolution requires survival advantages. How does chaos provide survival benefits? Dr. Reeves activated her medical tricorder, displaying biometric data from the various species representatives. Actually, we've been monitoring stress responses throughout this conference. The individuals who've experienced human-influenced evolution show significantly better adaptation to unexpected stimuli. They're not more chaotic, they're more flexible. Webb studied the faces or face analogs around the table. It seems to me that the galaxy has a choice. We can treat this as a contamination to be contained or as an opportunity for growth that should be offered freely. Elder Vexthera's form pulsed with approving light. Wisdom from a young species. Perhaps that is the most human trait of all, learning quickly from limited experience and having the courage to act on incomplete information. Zaralyn nodded, her multidimensional existence creating prismatic effects around her. We propose the establishment of contact protocols that allow voluntary exposure to human cultural influences, with full disclosure of potential psychological changes. The room fell silent as each delegation considered the implications. Webb realized they were potentially witnessing the birth of a new era in galactic civilization, one where evolution wasn't just biological, but conscious and chosen. Part 5. Resonant. Future. 6 months later, Captain Webb stood on the observation deck of Deep Space Station Harmony, watching as ships from dozens of species docked at the specially constructed facility. The station had become the galaxy's first evolution center, a place where beings could voluntarily experience controlled exposure to human cultural patterns and decide for themselves whether to embrace psychological change. The success had been unprecedented. Nearly 40% of visitors chose to undergo what the scientific community had termed consciousness expansion therapy, while the remainder returned to their home systems with new appreciation for both human flexibility and their own traditional structures. Quite a view, commented Dr. Rebecca Nash, the station's chief psychologist and formerly of the Meridian's crew. She joined Webb at the massive viewport, watching as a Catherian transport disgorged a group of young harmonists eager to experience human resonance. I keep expecting someone to tell us we've made a terrible mistake, Webb admitted, noting how the arriving Catherians moved with the fluid unpredictability that had become characteristic of the evolved faction of their species. Evolution is always a gamble, Nash replied. But the preliminary data suggests we're witnessing something unprecedented. Conscious, directed evolution happening in real time across multiple species. Through the viewport, Webb could see the arrival of the weekly transport from Earth, carrying volunteers from Terra's universities and research institutes. The human presence at the station wasn't just as catalysts for change in other species. Many humans were discovering that exposure to alien thought patterns was expanding their own consciousness in unexpected ways. Lieutenant Commander Vex approached, now wearing the insignia of Station Chief of Operations. His unorthodox methods had proven invaluable in managing the complex logistics of interspecies consciousness research. Captain, you've got an interesting visitor request, Vex announced, his grin suggesting something unusual was about to happen. Who? The Morganti High Command wants to send a battle group to observe our operations. Apparently, they've heard that humans can help warriors transcend programmed combat limitations. Webb raised an eyebrow. The Morganti want their soldiers to become more creative? Gets better, Vex continued. The Vorthak Trade Consortium is sending their most conservative merchants to see if they can learn human adaptability without losing their cultural identity. And the Nixari Collective. He paused for dramatic effect. They want to know if human consciousness patterns can help individual drones develop independent thought while maintaining hive connection. Dr. Nash whistled softly. Each species is approaching human interaction differently, trying to extract specific benefits while preserving their core identity. It's like they're treating us as a library of consciousness patterns they can selectively access. And what do humans get out of this? Webb asked. His answer came from an unexpected source. Zaralyn materialized beside them, her evolved form now capable of existing simultaneously in multiple locations across the station. Her presence no longer disrupted electronics. Instead, she enhanced them, creating harmony between biological and technological systems. "Humans get what they have always sought," she said, her voice carrying harmonics that made everyone present feel momentarily more connected to the universe around them. "You get to explore, to discover, to push boundaries that others accepted as permanent. Every species that evolves through contact with your patterns teaches you something new about consciousness itself." Webb nodded slowly, understanding. "We're not just helping other species evolve, we're evolving ourselves through the process." "Exactly," Zarlin confirmed. "The galaxy is becoming something new, not through conquest or assimilation, but through voluntary transformation. Species are choosing to grow beyond their limitations while maintaining their essential nature." Looking out at the bustling station, Webb could see the future taking shape. Catherian harmonists worked alongside human engineers, their combined perspectives creating technologies that neither species could have imagined alone. Zelhari mathematicians collaborated with human artists, producing equations that were simultaneously logical and beautiful. Morganti warriors trained with human strategists, learning that creativity and discipline could coexist. "We've started something that's going to reshape galactic civilization," Webb realized aloud. "Yes," Zarlin agreed, her multidimensional smile somehow visible to all of them simultaneously. "And the most human thing about it is that none of you planned for it to happen this way. You simply remained true to your nature, curious, adaptable, and willing to embrace the unknown." As Webb watched ships from across the galaxy converge on their small station, he understood that humanity's greatest contribution to the cosmos wasn't their technology or their military might. It was their fundamental refusal to accept that things had to remain as they were. In teaching other species that limitations were often self-imposed, humans had accidentally triggered the next phase of galactic evolution. The universe would never be the same, and that was exactly as it should be.